So uh, tonight's meeting is the public hearing for 65 Paulding Avenue. For people who are not familiar with how our process works, we will ask the applicant to present the project the way it is being submitted for approval. And then we will, since this is a virtual public hearing, what we'll do is we'll allow the public to ask questions. I don't know. We're sort of making this up as we're going along because it is in a different format than we normally when we're in a room where we're having a public hearing. Normally after the presentation, what we do is we allow the public some time to look at the documents, but I think that everybody has already looked at the documents. And so what I will do is after the presentation by the applicant, we'll open it up for public hearing, for public comments. There is some letters that we received, and I'll ask Sean to read those letters after the presentation by the applicant. After that, what we'll do is we'll close the public comment section and we'll open it for the board discussion. The board will ask questions and discuss any questions that they may have, and then hopefully we'll be able to take a vote on the application. So with that, I'll turn it over to, I guess, Joe, are you going to give the presentation of the project?
Yes, good evening, Al. Good evening, everyone. If I can screen share, maybe I'll pull up the drawings as we present, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Is that screen sharing is disabled by the host at the moment?
It makes me do this every time. Okay. How about now?
Let's try again. There we go. So what you see on the screen is design proposed for custom new residence for 65 Paulding Avenue. I'm Joe Thompson, the architect for Matt and Kristen Sherman, the homeowners that are looking to build a custom home that is historic in style and in keeping with a lot of the design features of the historic district, and seeks to positively complement the fabric of the historic district. Over the past several meetings with the board, we've made a number of revisions and adjustments, which we've appreciated all the board feedback, and we think it led to some positive improvements, and have been on our side pretty happy with how the home is developed. It is a colonial style house, 2-story, and I'll just walk through the drawings. It was originally based on a prior approval that it seeks to emulate and improve upon in some ways that was related to the Butterfield development some 5 years ago, roughly. What the major changes entailed, just as a recap for anybody who's listening to this for the first time, is we propose to reorient the driveway and the layout of the house for lot 3. The previously approved elevation on the bottom of the screen was originally intended for the middle lot. And so by placing this house on the 3rd lot, it allowed us to reorient the house and a number of the living spaces to face the park, which led to a nicer facade design on the park facing side, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen right now, as opposed to seeing the side of the garage from the park. So we've done a number of things to break down the scale of the house, as it's a walkout type basement home due to grading by lowering the siding, and again, I've incorporated a lot of historic design features such as 4/1 and 6/1 window grills, a barrel vaulted entry, a solid wood entrance door with side lights and a transom, a covered front porch that actually wraps around as you face the park, and again, are seeking to create a home that will have a positive presence, as it's a pretty prominent viewpoint, and there's some beautiful architecture in the surrounding neighborhood that, again, we'd like to be a good neighbor to. There's any questions from the board, or we turn it over to the public? I can also talk through the specifications package that's proposed, if that's what the board would like to
Yeah,
discuss.
please go over the specification package and explain why there is that second specification package.
Sure. So the specification package, I'll pull this up, that was published initially. I'll walk through what's in it, and then there's a second alternate package that we proposed shortly afterwards that, in review and working with the board, we believe represents an upgrade from the prior package. So I can compare and contrast those two and maybe open up the discussion. So what we're proposing inside the house with is a historic style clapboard out of fiber cement, due to longevity and durability of the material. It would be a smooth finish. We'd have matching trim, architectural roof shingles, 6/1 stimulated divided light grills, the 7/8 profile, same windows that were actually installed on the Butterfield condominium. A 2-panel solid front entrance door, originally proposed to be fiberglass. In the alternate package that I'll pull up, we upgraded to a solid wood door. Proposed to have side lights and a transom. Garage doors are proposed to be carriage style to provide a more historic appearance. There's a number of options here selected on the screen, and we can always go back to the elevations to take a look at it. But essentially what we're proposing is a 3-light pattern over a solid panel, not any of the barn style diagonal trim, but a trim similar to that's highlighted on the upper right with 3 individual lights. For decking, we're proposing Trex, again, due to durability and longevity concerns. The original package proposed a complementary railing, and the alternate, we proposed upgrade to cedar. A pergola that would have been in the initial package proposed to be fiberglass column wraps and aluminum construction. Again, in the alternate package, proposed to upgrade to cedar. Foundation finish, a textured decorative finish that would cover what is left of the exposed foundation now that we've minimized it on the park-facing facade. Stucco-like in appearance. Traditional style light fixtures. This fixture is proposed to be hanging from the barrel vault at the front entrance. There are a number of sconces proposed on the facade, flanking the front entrance door, the garage doors. A ceiling fan for both the front covered porch and for the pergolas. Historic style entrance door hardware and trim. We're proposing half-round gutters, dark bronze finish to emulate the appearance of an aged copper with round leaders, not square, smooth finish. And then again, even though I've described the changes in the alternate package, I'll pull up this package and we can revisit anything that anybody would like to go back to. But again, fiber cement siding, asphalt roof shingles, architectural, same windows. Big change in this package would be to upgrade the front entrance door to a solid wood. Same garage door, same decking. And then another upgrade would be to propose to upgrade all of the trim, the column wraps to be field fabricated with routed details and field painted to provide a more convincing historic appearance and a field finished appearance that Will enhance the overall exterior of the house. Same material for the beadboard for the underside of the front covered porches. This is Boral. It's a synthetic fly ash material that is very similar in its workability to wood and density to wood, and again can be field finished as opposed to a factory finished trim package as the prior specifications proposed had entailed. Same foundation finish, same lighting fixtures, and a slight change in entrance hardware, aged dark bronze, traditional style trim set. And again, same gutters. The two specifications packages that would complement the drawings of the proposed elevations for the house. The board would like me to review anything specifically in more detail, we're happy to do so or respond to any questions.
Okay, I guess at this point, Joe, am I correct that you're pretty much finished as far as the presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sean, can you read the two letters we got?
Yeah, we received 2 pieces of correspondence prior to the meeting. The first was from the neighbors at 30 Paulding Avenue. Their names are Lourdes and Stephen Lafer. And Michael, I'll forward both of these over to you for spellings and addresses. They sent this to the clerk on Sunday. The comment is, the Butterfield developer should be required to honor his agreement made with the village to use natural materials in building the 3 homes located on Paulding Avenue. We are strongly opposed to the use of synthetic materials. We urge you to insist that he honor the agreement he made to use natural materials and keep the construction of the 3 homes in line with the historic nature of the street. Sincerely, Lourdes and Stephen Lafer, 30 Paulding Avenue. The second piece of correspondence was from neighbors at 56 Paulding, who I notice are on the call. I will read their letter, and if they want to add anything else afterwards, they can. This was received yesterday. Hello, clerk and HDRB. We are writing to express concern about the house going in at 65 Paulding Avenue. We have been told that back in 2015, the Butterfield developer made an agreement with the village that the materials for these homes would be natural and in line with the historic nature of the street. These properties do not fall on the National Historic Register, but they are on the local historic register. The developer and architect are allowing synthetic materials to be used, such as Trex for railing and decking and hardy board for siding and trim. From what we know, the owners of the property did not realize this and of course would prefer not to get into the extra expense of natural materials. The HDRB has a duty to keep the commitment that was made in 2015. We understand that this is the first of the 3 houses and will set precedent for the remaining properties. We have no interest in making anyone's life more difficult as they design their house, but we do feel strongly that the developer should have been honest with the owners. It is important to keep the commitment, and an overload of 3 homes with synthetic materials will drastically change the feeling of Paulding Avenue. The new homes should be more in line with the houses on the street than with the Butterfield apartment complex behind the new homes. Thank you, Michelle and Eric Cupper, 56 Paulding Avenue.
Mr. Cupper, do you want to add anything to your letter?
Actually, I think, sorry, it took me a while to unmute, but I think the letter really does explain our concerns. Our concern is that this is a fairly large area, contiguous area of the street. And if you have 3 homes going in and they're not similar in style or architecture to what's already on Paulding Avenue, it will change the look and the feel of the residential area.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll open it to anybody else, any other person of the public or public person would like to offer a comment.
Hello.
Yes.
My name's Thomas Ambrose. My video's not on because my camera's broken, but I'm also a resident of Paulding Avenue. I live at 40 Paulding, and I was part of a group of residents here who met directly with Galero at the early stages of Butterfield in trying to move him away from putting 2 large buildings on this parcel of property towards residential. The intent was that although his property is not going to be part of it, the rest of the street is part of the National Historic Register as well as the local historic register. And I share a concern that with the advent of the house that's on the corner of Pine and Paulding on the west side of Paulding, adding 3 new houses that are not following his original promise of using natural materials and historic in nature and sort of harmonize nicely with the rest of the street. It's tipping this corridor into something that is not, it's going to be out of balance for historic significance. I mean, both the houses on the east side of Paulding for that block will be sort of visually overwhelmed, and they are, incredibly beautiful houses for the entry into this section. So my concern is that we're sort of celebration of Florida-ing historic character on some level, where it's like an homage to historic, but not actually historic. I share the Cupper's point of view that I am not interested in making somebody who's trying to make a house life difficult, but I do feel as though living in a house that was made in 1856 and subject to all the constraints of the historic board that I agree with, and part of the reason why I moved here and feel strongly about that, it will set a very damaging precedent to the one of the very nice streets of Cold Spring in terms of historic character. Is it possible to ask a couple quick questions of the board?
Sure.
Is typically hardy board an approvable material for building in the town historic district?
Well, all right. Hardy board has been approved in certain new construction, and it's not in the because previously, or at least up to this point, we've been dealing with the portion that's on the National Register and portion that's local, and so we have allowed the use of hardy board in certain instances where it wasn't really very visible. It was new construction, so therefore it's not like any historic fabric was in danger. And certainly one of the principles of historic preservation is that any new construction should be something which is of the period it was built. So that's sort of a long answer, but the short answer is yes, we have allowed it in certain restricted instances.
Understood. And then I guess,
may I hop into further that a little bit, Thomas?
Yeah.
So in those situations, each application is reviewed on its own merits and has its own set of facts. One of the set of facts in this application is it is encumbered by a previous agreement, and those other locations that Al refers to were not.
Great.
And then my next question is as all of the colonial windows on the street have 6/6 as opposed to 6/1 and 4/1, I'm wondering, is that deviation, I'm sorry, my cat is annoying. Is that deviation something that is sort of new to this area, or has it just been accepted in other areas in town as well?
I think you would be hard pressed to find a uniformity of the Muntin styles in windows. I mean, we have houses which.
No need to go on. If I trust if you say that that's the way it is in town, that's totally fine. And then I guess my last question, although it is, I feel a little bit misrepresentative to try to marry what goes on in these houses to what is behind it, because one, the houses will obscure most of what's behind it. What's behind it in no way represents a residential neighborhood. It's a very large, sprawling building. Although I will now counter my own thing and ask a question about the foundation. I noticed that most of the exposed foundation of the development has a brick-clad foundation where there's brick for the exposed below the siding section. So I'm curious about the deviation, particularly on the park side. The other sides of the building I don't think are going to be exposed, but is that something that was not brought up in the historic review board's discussion of the foundation?
Okay. You guys want me to answer, or does somebody else want to jump in? Okay. The foundation was not previously addressed because in the previous drawings that were submitted by Mr. Galero, there was not such a drastic change in the grade, and so therefore there wasn't that much exposed foundation to be seen. What we were dealing with originally was a lot more of the foundation that was exposed, and in working with the architect for the applicant, we were able to at least change that to more siding, and the amount of foundation I don't think is that noticeable, that significant in comparison to the rest of the house. I personally, and I'm just speaking for me as one member of the board, I don't think that is that much of an issue. And again, the village has a lot of different foundation types. They do not necessarily use brick. A lot of times it is stucco, whether it is stucco on CMU or concrete block. So there is a lot of variability, and my personal feeling is that I think that the exposed foundation is minimized.
Well, if we could also flesh it out a bit for Thomas's question and for the benefit of others on the call. So the original drawings of 2015, when the first certificate of appropriateness was approved, were the structures as a line. We looked at them as a group at that time, and as Al said, the grade changes were not represented in the drawings. So the amount of exposed foundation in the drawings is not what is now represented in the actual site scenario, where there is much more grading on the side. We did spend much of our time and a chunk of time in our workshops with the applicant talking about this portion of the foundation, and it is much improved over where we were. I'm trying to point, but maybe Joe can point to the lattice section that was added on the park side, and then the siding was brought down further. And thank you, Joe. And we got to that to this place in the design after having considered, as Al stated, that around the village there are grade shifts all over. We all live on graded parcels, and exposed foundation is handled in multiple ways around the village with different materials. So if we were to go back and look at the first iteration of this drawing from June, we are much improved over where we were in terms of exposed material. We had asked Joe to provide a photograph of the material as installed and not just the spec sheet. Were you able to find a photograph like that, Joe, so that maybe that would address some of Mr. Ambrose's concern?
Unfortunately not, but let me just pull up that photograph again in the spec.
It's fine. It was a small question, but it was just, to me, it was a curious deviation. I didn't know what kind of thought had gone into it. So
thank you for asking it.
In the end, just to sum up and end my time and not take any more of your times, I do, as somebody who was involved extensively in moving the developer two houses from condominiums on Paulding and feeling strongly about wanting to maintain a historic character, I share my other neighbor's concern about synthetic materials and the way it will reflect and possibly impact our properties, as well as the historic continuity amongst the houses that already exist here. Thank you very much for your time and your answers.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes, hi, Susan Kenny, 36 Paulding. I just want to echo everything Thomas just said, and also add that when we put a kitchen extension on our house 10 years ago, the Historic Review Board was absolutely rigorous and exacting in what we were allowed to do. I want to see the same strictures and application with this new build. I should also add that I sat in on meetings with the developer, many meetings, at least 6, where he promised that these houses would be built to historic standards. And then that also translated into his approvals, as far as I know. I'd like to see that upheld. Again, what Thomas said, no one wants to bring economic hardship onto somebody trying to build a house in Cold Spring. But after having lived through the standards and adapting our plans to them, that should be applied across the board. There should be no exceptions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to speak. We live at 46 Paulding Avenue, and we moved here in 2018, and we're a bit shocked to see the Butterfield development go up. And I see these houses as a buffer to that, and maintaining the historic character and keeping with natural materials is integral to that. If they did not, then they would just be an extension of that development, which is completely out of character with this street. And I'd like to see the promises that were made to the community upheld.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, can you just confirm, what was that Kimberly Sevilla who was just speaking?
Yes, I live at 46 Paulding Avenue.
Okay, just wanted to make sure your name was on the record. Thank you.
Okay, I guess one last owner who, would you like to offer any comment or? Okay.
Sorry, was that to us, Al?
No, there is a somebody on the call who's the only thing is shows is owner. So you're muted. Okay.
Okay, that's better.
Yes.
My name is Maria Hardman. I live in Butterfield. And I love the look of Paulding. I think this house that Joe designed fits the facade of the West Street side of Paulding. I think that there's landscaping all over. I think Butterfield itself, I'm very proud of living here because I think it's, think it has all of the appeal of the Paulding houses. It doesn't have the age, but it certainly has the look and adherence to all of the greenery. So I think that Joe has designed something that's complementary to Butterfield, which this house will be screened from regardless, and complementary to Paulding and to that house, that the two houses on, is that Court Street that are new and will be parallel to them. So I built my other house with Hardy board, and it was very historic looking. It had the right colors and the right look and the right finish. So those are my comments. I like the house, and I think it will enhance Paulding.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, could you just spell your last name, please?
Hardman.
Okay, and what is your address?
22 Butterfield Road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have now heard from everybody who is at the hearing and all of the correspondence. So with that, we will now close the public comments portion of the public hearing, and we'll open it up to questions and comments from board members. Does anybody want to start?
Hi, I'd like to start by responding to the last comment. The point of these three houses was to screen the mix of commercial and condo development from Paulding. They should not look like the condos that are there at Butterfield. They're supposed to look like a neighborhood. And that was the promise that the developer gave the village and this neighborhood. So that's my thought on that. Additionally, we should be clear that we do not consider any vegetation. Vegetation comes and goes. So if we're considering that as some kind of screening, our board won't consider that.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Sean, any questions or comments?
Oh, yeah, I think that I've been, obviously we've gone through a couple of reviews with the homeowners and the architect, and, it's not uncommon for new construction in the historic district to go through many workshops and reviews and meetings. So I would say this has actually gone much faster than some other projects we've worked on as far as new construction is concerned. But I think that the applicants have been very willing to respond to a lot of the design elements that we've been concerned about, as far as the overall facade itself, some really specific details about doors and side lights and windows. As Kathleen pointed out earlier, the way that the rear was going to be treated, the foundation lines. So I just want to acknowledge that this isn't, that there hasn't been any stubbornness or obstruction or anything on the part of the applicant. As far as the actual final material package is concerned, I've been, kind of thinking of what the two possible alternatives could be as far as the interpretation of the COA for the total site and the discussions that were had with the developer at the time that these houses were incorporated into the site plan. And, I think that the discussion of using the natural materials was first and foremost the link between the contemporary architecture, while historically inspired, but the contemporary architecture of these buildings and the antique quality of the buildings elsewhere on the street. So the use of the natural materials is really kind of the thing that does link them together. I think if an accommodation was going to be made to move away from an all wood or all natural material palette to something that was a kind of a combination of wood and man-made materials, I think the one thing that would need to remain would be the ability for all of the materials to be paintable surfaces. And right now, with the use of, right now as proposed with the combination of the hardy board and the Baral trim, the only thing that's really going to remain a paintable surface is the trim itself. And the siding, which obviously is so much more of the volume of the facades, is going to be a perma-finish material. So the more that I've had to kind of think about this and think of all the variations, I can't see how allowing the hardy board siding is really making good on the earlier agreements about how these houses would be treated. I think without it being, I think were it not to be an actual wood material for the siding, for me to feel comfortable as a member of the board, it would have to be a man-made material that was, paintable and served the same function as wood. As far as the other sort of accommodations that are made, obviously we don't have a problem with using the steel garage door with the trim that's applied to it. The Trex decking we've talked about as being a totally acceptable solution for the back deck and the porch, but and the windows as well being a vinyl clad material. But as far as the siding of the house is concerned, I just feel strongly that we need to either have it be if not wood, which would be preferred, it's going to have to be something which is paintable and remains a much more credible replacement for wood. As far as the other materials that are proposed, I think the lighting is fine, the gutters are fine. I think that the wood door is going to be great, and certainly much more in line with the neighboring houses. And I guess we can talk about the railings and the pergola in the back as well. Those were originally proposed in cedar, and I think they should remain in cedar.
I guess let me ask Joe a question. I was under the impression that hardy board is paintable.
Correct, it can be painted. There is a pre-primed option that could be painted.
Is that what's being proposed?
We could discuss that. It's not what was submitted, but if that made the difference, you know, overall, I think, you know, we've certainly heard public's concerns and neighbors' concerns. We want to do a good job here. We want to do a beautiful home. I think we started with some good bones from the prior approval, as you can see on this image. And I think we've made further enhancements, especially as how the house relates to the park by manipulating the lot and changing the lot. I think it would be very challenging to notice the difference from the street between the two, but we also want to do this right. And if providing a painted finish made the difference, I think that's something we could be open to. The house itself is following historic standards as far as design proportions and a lot of the different elements that are included. You know, to comment on, you know, how rigorous the process was. This is our 5th meeting. We have been, thank you, Sean, you know, responsive to a lot of the feedback from the board, and we've wanted to work with the board and again do a good job on this house. It's important to get this one right. All 3 of them, actually. And all 3 of these houses should serve to enhance Paulding and buffer the scale of Butterfield, which this might not be a popular comment, but I think is a nice building. But to the board's point, the residents' point, the scale needs to be buffered by these houses successfully. So while there was a previous agreement for Cedar, you know, the homeowners that purchased weren't aware of that at the time, and you know, I know that's not an excuse for something that was previously approved and agreed upon. But Cedar is you know, this shouldn't be about financial hardship, but it is an expense. It does require a lot of maintenance. It does require a commitment to preserve the appearance of the house that somebody has to take seriously for long term in order for the house to maintain a good appearance and maintain a good condition. So hence the presentation for synthetic materials, which are historic in style and do not run contrary to the design guidelines. But again, long and short, if having a paintable finish helped to bridge the gap here, that's something we'd be open to.
All right, Kathleen, your thoughts and comments?
I think Sean is, am I good? Am I on here? Yep, okay. I think Sean has summarized my thinking quite well. I do feel quite strongly, and I think that the comment tonight has reflected that a commitment was made to the community and it's important that it be upheld. I believe that the applicant has worked very hard and with an open mind and open heart to achieve design modifications that would create a building that sits more comfortably in the district and particularly on that street. I think inevitably because of things like, although we are using historic proportions, the placement of the garage reads as a contemporary structure, and some of the accommodations that we have been willing to shift on will also help the structure read as contemporary, and those include the windows and the Trex decking, and I think we have made compromises in those ways. However, a commitment was made, and I am only too sorry that that commitment was not made clear when the property was sold. I think that's been a disservice to the new property owner. And I'm sorry to say that it's not the village's problem to solve. A commitment was made to the community. And I believe that natural materials should be the standard where we begin. Paintability is an issue, absolutely. And while sorry, not Burrell, hardy board is paintable, it does read, the texture does read as something other than wood. It is often an authentic replacement, but we have begun in a different place than we would if we were on a lot that had not had previous commitments made. So I feel that we have come part of the way with you in terms of the garage doors, the decking, the windows. We have found ways to accommodate modifications on the foundation that mitigate some of the financial impacts. But I do feel strongly about the natural materials for the siding and the trim.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Lloyd?
Oh, I am unmuted. Yes, thank you. I feel a lot of what's been said. I can second a lot of that. I think during this process, I didn't realize it had been 5 meetings, but during this process, it has been a lot. As Kathleen says, everybody has come a long way with the proposal, both on the design side and on our board side, not to oppose this against each other, but in our discussion and in the concessions made both ways. I am the newest person on this board and have only lived in town for 2 years next week. So I don't know the history. I was probably the most open to considering alternate materials except for the Trex railing. That was probably my only sticking point. However, I do see the advantage of a natural material, the advantage of materials aging together, and the advantage of those materials in being able to relate to the neighbors whose materials are reacting in the same way and creating sort of a bridge between the two. I think I was also very, I'm also very, it's good to hear everybody's opinion in the neighborhood too. And to be reminded again, what a beautiful street Paulding is. The most beautiful one in town, I believe. I think that's all I have to add. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lloyd. So that's all the board members except for me, and I'll give my 2 cents. I guess Kathleen and I are the only ones who went through the process of the entire redevelopment C of A certificate of appropriateness process. And it was a very painful and antagonistic event. And for the owners, the new owners and the architect, Joe Thompson, you really have no way of appreciating some of the animosity that was generated, and the result of why we had such a detailed and specific drawings that had been presented for these 3 houses. I do feel that it was an important part of the entire development, getting its C of A, and listening to the comments of the people who are going to be the neighbors of these houses. I sympathize with them. I mean, they really want to welcome their new neighbors, and rather than feel like it's a bait and switch situation. And so I think that, to me, I had been wavering on whether or not hardy board was going to be acceptable. But you know, right now I'm leaning against it. I think that there were reasons why the materials were selected and approved as part of the original application or the original approval for the certificate of appropriateness. And so I think that we can't dismiss it out of hand just because, you know, it's now a couple of years later. So with that, let me see if we can at least focus in on the things which may be an issue as far as getting an approval here. Now, let me ask the board members, as far as the elevations and plans, you know, does anybody have objections to the drawings?
No, I do not.
I think just the only thing that we talked about previously, which isn't reflected on the drawings, and this is by no means a deal breaker for me, but we had talked about moving the plane of the garage either backward or forward so that it isn't in line with the plane of the front of the house. And I just wanted to know whether that was something that was overlooked or explored, or is it actually reflected? What's the status of that?
It's on the, take a look in the drawing.
It is not in the drawings that were submitted though, back.
Oh.
What we're seeing on screen does not match what I was.
Correct. Not, yeah, that's one thing which just I want to mention to you, Joe, because I was looking for confirmation on a number of things, and I do remember seeing this, but it wasn't part of that package that was submitted for final approval. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that is why I did not see that. I guess that raises another question for Joe, which is, were there any other changes in this set that you just presented against what we have dated the 5th?
So the latest drawings that were issued and published should have been dated August 12th. I guess we should recap on anything if that's not what the board is looking at. Because we did recess that garage in response to the comments. Very, very minor subtle changes. So and Kathleen, you had the version that had the lattice, I believe. Let me see, I'm just gonna pull up the August 5th version of these plans just for comparison.
Joe, I was working from your screen share.
Okay.
But I believe that what is in our hard drive, Sean, is dated the 12th of August.
I'm double checking that.
Well, what's on our drive, what's on the HDRB Google Drive is not. That's dated the 5th. What was posted on the public hearing website is dated the 12th.
I'm sorry, that's what I was looking at. Sorry. Yeah. Whatever set I was looking at, it was dated August 12th.
Right, and that does reflect the setback on the garage facade.
That change, along with the update of the columns on the front porch, again, to be a field fabricated column versus the larger, let's say bulkier, but larger, bulkier fiberglass columns, you know, that have been re-updated. And then the deck also showing just a natural cedar type railing and column style to coordinate with the alternate specification package. Really the only change is the drop in the siding had occurred prior on the August 5th version of the drawings.
Right.
And, you know, it's maybe more decorative, but we're proposing a small window planter box outside the kitchen window. Might be a nice feature, again, on this wall to break down the massing of that side wall. So very minor changes.
Okay, am I, so then, am I correct that the latest drawings that are being considered are dated August 12th?
Correct.
Yeah, and those are the ones which were made available to the public on the website.
Okay.
They just weren't included on our drive.
All right. So I think that as far as the structure itself, the appearance and the configuration of the various components, that there are no issues. What we seem to be really focusing on is in fact the siding. Am I correct? I mean, I think, is that the big issue that we're trying to resolve here?
The siding and the trim. I mean, I do think that the Boral is, we have always said Boral, is a great improvement because it can be field finished and it does have a cleaner, crisper line. But to mix and match that high quality product with a lower quality product, it doesn't make sense to me in this application, particularly when a very high standard was previously established. So, I mean, I think that if you were to sort of look at a spectrum of materials, in the first position, in my view, is what was previously agreed and committed to the community. The next is a field finished synthetic product, and the last is a factory, very last, and in my mind, not to be considered at all, given the elements and previous agreements of the case, would be a factory finished product.
All right, let me ask the applicants. How do you guys feel about changing the siding back to cedar siding? Is that something that you're willing to consider?
I don't believe that it is, only because of the amount of maintenance entailed with the cedar. We've looked at that option in great detail, cost of the life cycle of it, and it's really not something the owner wants to entertain. What has been mentioned a few times, and perhaps we can meet in a middle ground here, to remove all factory finishes and potentially even upgrade the entire trim package to be coordinated from a fiber cement to a Boral, which offers a beautiful finish. I'd really challenge anybody to notice the difference from even a few feet away, let alone from the street, between those two. What the owner's trying to do here is build a house that's going to last, that's going to be low maintenance, that's not going to be cumbersome, and that it requires repainting and continued maintenance to preserve its appearance. I think we would be willing to go that far with it.
I just would say that we live in a village that is 200 years old at least. Products, the houses across the street last. And the reason that our village doesn't look like a suburb is because we don't build plastic houses here. Because we have high standards in the historic district. So I want to sort of make clear that there is no product that's maintenance free. The question is what the quality of the product is and how it ages over time. So you are not going to build a house of any product that requires no maintenance over time. That is a fallacy. The question is how those products sit in relationship to the historic fabric around them, how they both respect and defer to the historic fabric around them.
Agree, and I don't mean to demean the historic fabric in any way, because there are some exceptionally beautiful and well-maintained homes and buildings in Cold Spring. But we do think this house will be a significant enhancement. Unfortunately, probably a period of time before the HDRB maybe existed, before it serves its purpose today to protect and enhance the district, which is obviously why we're going through this considerable effort on this application and all the others that I'm sure you work on. There are a lot of buildings in close proximity that are modern in nature. Ranches, seen bi-levels, some vinyl sided, some aluminum. and it's the minority, but again, we're in much higher standard than that. Cedar, unfortunately, today is not quite what cedar was 200 years ago either. New, more modern growth cedar is not the same as the old growth cedar that is on some of these houses that are 100+ years old. Again, I think the application has significant merit on its own as it stands, with the way it's been designed, with the way it's been formulated, the care of detail and scale and proportion, and what it does for Paulding. Again, the cedar siding is not a commitment that the owner wants to entertain. They'd be willing, again, to go maybe as far as a Boral product, which is a significant upgrade, as you mentioned, from a fiber cement, and would take out the factory finished, which doesn't have as much character as a real true painted finish, where you can see the brush strokes and where you can manipulate the material in ways that you can't with, for instance, the fiberglass columns we had in the beginning. We couldn't hand chamfer those corners and create the details that we can in those columns that we think hopefully will quite nicely complement the beautiful house across the street. Very similar style chamfered edge columns. So I guess that's what we'd ask of the board, is to consider the application based on its merit so far. And again, we'd be willing to upgrade the siding even further to a Boral package and have a complete field finish. And I really think that accomplishes the spirit of what we're trying to do here, and provide a beautifully detailed home that's going to be of character that hopefully everybody will be proud of when it's finished.
Okay, and thoughts on the parts of the board members? On the part of the board members?
I just want to clarify that we're talking about the alternate specification package, which is the one we saw, right? With the wood door and the cedar railings. Sorry, it's not a very...
I think you're muted.
Sorry, the alternate package still has hardy board, Lloyd. It just...
No, I understand. There are things, and I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. I'm going back to the drive to look at that. And the 812 drawings, because I was looking at the 85 drawings. So, excuse me.
That's right. That's right, Roy.
Thank you. Anyway, I just wanted to confirm that.
All right, I guess, let me just clarify, because I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that you're offering to change the hardy board to Boral siding?
Yes.
Okay, how do the other board members feel about that? Andrea?
I'm trying to unmute myself, sorry. Even if it was changed to Boral, I'm still very troubled by what was promised by the developer. What he agreed to, what his company agreed to, was clear. And that was a hard-fought battle for the people in that neighborhood, for the people of our community, for the people of the village. And, in that regard, I just feel like, just speaking as a member of this board, I feel like my hands are tied there.
Kathleen?
If this were new construction on a site unencumbered by previous agreements, I would feel absolutely comfortable with Boral siding and Boral trim. I think field finish is important, and does help new construction sit comfortably alongside historic construction. But like Andrea, I feel that this community and the neighborhood, it's very clear, listening to the neighbors who will look at these buildings day in and day out, what it is they expect from previous agreements and why. And that was documented in the certificate of appropriateness in 2015. And that was known at the time the property was transferred. And so, like Andrea, I feel as if that is where we began, and it is where we must be. I feel that we have compromised on a number of materials on the structure that represent a good faith negotiation. So that's where I stand.
Okay, Sean, you're next.
I feel that if it is being professed as an impossibility to use cedar siding, I do think that the boral is for the siding is a much better alternative. The difficult issue that we're dealing with now is this home is going to set the precedent for what happens on the two houses that neighbor it. If we allow for the boral siding to go up on this house, we are essentially signing off on it going up on all three houses. And although we've seen it in other applications outside of the village, it's not like we'll have the opportunity to see this house finalized, painted, and finished before we're going to be looking at the next application. I think had it not been for the comments of the neighbors and the comments that we've received, I would be a little bit more lenient on it. But again, I think we do have this obligation to the history of this site. One other sort of just minor thing to consider is that, for us to approve the siding, for the boral siding, we would have to see a cut sheet or a sample or what the detail is. I'm not familiar enough with the product to know how many different sizes and all of those things are available. So that's a technical issue that would need to be addressed. So I guess to Kathleen's point, I would say that it would be, in all other circumstances, it would be a great solution. And I guess it just raises the question to our board of how comfortable we feel deviating from the original agreement of the developer. I understand that that it can be an acceptable alternative to wood, but there is the other issue at hand, which is what the developer has agreed to.
Hey, Sean, just one comment worth noting in that response, which is that I don't believe either of the other homes have sold at this time. And so there could be a chance that you will see our home completed before you see another application come through. So just to note that we don't have any neighbors going in at this time, although I do acknowledge to the board's overall sentiment that this obviously does set sort of a tone, and we acknowledge that. And so, but just a detail there to point out.
Well, I think that whether it's imminent or way down in the future, what we do here does in fact set the precedent for the other two buildings, and that's just something that we understand. Mm-hmm. It's I have to agree with a lot of the sentiments already expressed that, certainly if it had not been part of the Butterfield development, where there was some previous commitments made. And obviously the neighbors are very insistent on it. Certainly I think it would have been a lot easier, but I just, it's clear that the community is looking for what was originally promised, or at least as close to that as possible. So
on that point, Al, I would love for the board to consider that the combination that we are presenting of the natural wood materials on some of the exterior elements, as well as Burrell, which would potentially achieve the as close as promised sentiment that you just raised. You know, I think Joe sort of mentioned this a couple times, but just like from like Matt and I's like genuine, like deepest heart desires is just to build like a really beautiful home that our family can live in, and to do so that contributes to the overall fabric of the community. And so, you know, we love living in Cold Spring. We're so excited to have found a community where we want to raise our family. And we appreciate the process we've gone through with the board, and we do think it's contributed to the overall betterment of the design. But we also have to consider that the world's in a totally different place than it was 5 years ago. We're in the middle of a pandemic and a national recession. And while, you know, we've entered into this project and feel really excited about it, I think we do have to just consider the plight of the world and where we're at, and economically the viability of bringing this structure forward. So I did just want to deposit that, and I appreciate the comments from the neighbors about not wanting to impose additional hardship. We take that to heart, and you know, please know that like we want to add to the betterment of your property values, of your home, of your neighborhood, and wholeheartedly intend to do that with this home. So please know that like there's no intent in what we've submitted to deviate from that, and you know, we'll stand by that over the next several months as we hopefully can build this home, and then several years as your neighbors unfolding out.
I think it's just important to make clear, and I appreciate that. I feel the emotion. As I said in previous sessions, this is a very emotional process. When you're having other people tell you what your house should look like, I appreciate it. I feel it. I acknowledge it. All of us, I think all of us, all but one of us live in the historic district. And so we have all been down this road ourselves as applicants, so we can empathize. And that's important to say out loud. But we do have law to uphold. We do have an ordinance to uphold, and we have a series of criteria that we need to consider under the code. And so while the issues that you raise are legitimate and real and painful, we must base our decision on the facts of the case and the criteria under our ordinance. So I just, for the benefit of the public, I wanted everyone to understand what it is that we cannot make a decision based on emotion. We make a decision based on fact and law.
Kathleen, I just totally understand where you're coming from. I just guess there's two ways to look at this, and I feel like you're only really focused in on one way. I mean, Al, you brought up the animosity from the condo approval 5 years ago, and I think we're feeling that animosity now, still kind of holding over. I get it. There, you know, a deal was struck 5 years ago, but everything that we're proposing right now, to your point about, you know, within standards, is within the standards of the HDRB. Like everything is within your guidelines as it reads in your book. There's nothing out of whack there. And so while I get the standard of this previous plan, there's also the standard of your guidelines. And I would just challenge you to look within your guidelines, but also within the purpose. You know, I've read that multiple times as well. And it's about, you know, withholding the character and the values. And you know, I've heard from the neighbors, and I understand, you know, the value of their home is really important. I don't believe this home, as it's being proposed, is going to devalue the neighborhood. I think it will add value to the neighborhood. That's my opinion. I know that's subjective. But if you drive down Paulding, and we have pictures, you know, there's full exposed floors of siding, you know, foundation, and like there's all kinds of stuff that don't fit within your guidelines. And we're proposing a home within your guidelines. And I feel like we're very hung up on this one point of siding. And Kathleen, you mentioned, you know, if you were to go feel the texture, well, you know, that's a private property. No one's going to go up and feel the texture of our home except for us, unless invited. And so, you know, I look at, you know, okay, what it was 5 years ago. As I said last call, I get it. Like, you don't love the condos. I don't love the condos either. Like, I don't want to live next to condos. But my guess is, and you can, you know, if I'm honestly wrong, disagree with me. My guess is when the bad blood went down 5 years ago, the beef wasn't about the siding of the houses. It was the fact that we had 3-story condos going in Cold Spring, and people didn't like that. And I don't like it, right? But they're there. And so to hold over the bad blood about the siding of the house, which, unless you're going to go up to our house, you know, and trespass and feel it, you're not going to notice. Like, it just seems like that animosity is holding over a bit when everything in the house is fitting the guidelines and meeting the purpose of what you do. So that's where we struggle. I get it. You can hold on. You can hold the line on the original plan. You know, that is a way to look at it. I just don't think it's the only way. And, you know, I feel like we're meeting the purpose of why this.
Let us be clear that the materials, that this is not bad blood. The decisions that were made in 2015 were purposeful and intended to mitigate the impact of the density, the height, and the character of the houses behind. So the gentleman who sold you that property made a compromise in order to achieve the density, the height, and the character that he built behind the property that you now owe. So this was a purposeful decision to mitigate impact from one housing type to another. This is it's very standard in development projects. When a developer wants something from a municipality, they compromise to sweeten the package for the neighborhood around. And the sweetening of the package was mitigating the visual transition from the National Register properties across the street to the dense multifamily housing behind. So this is not about bad blood. It is about a well-considered, long discussed solution to create buffer between one housing type and another. This is standard planning in an urban environment.
Yeah, and Matt, I mean, you know, there was a lot of animosity back then, but ultimately the certificate of appropriateness that was approved was based on the various requirements and the fact that what was presented for these 3 houses did in fact have an impact on our accepting what was done elsewhere on the site. So, you know, it's not carrying over any animosity. I mean, you know, we're just trying to, you know, obviously the developer has gotten what we agreed to as far as the other buildings go. And so we're just trying to follow up with these 3 buildings on what was promised. And so, you know, we're not trying to stick it to anybody. We're just trying to follow through on what was agreed to.
And I'm just, I guess, asking you to consider that, can you vary from an original agreement if it meets the purposes of the HDRB and fits within your guidelines?
And it meets the overall agreement and context of the larger site. I mean, there is an and statement, not a but statement there. And the and statement is
sure
how that design meets the standard for the whole site and the transition into the larger district. So it's not just about a single house here. It is a whole package of an area of the village and the character of that whole area, which has been impacted by this large development. And this was the mitigation that was agreed to allow that modification of density and the rezoning of that parcel.
Right, and with the architecture of the house, we've changed everything the way you want it. Like, it's the way, you know, everyone says thumbs up, thumbs up. What we're saying is that because of the siding, you could go up and feel it, and it would feel different, and that doesn't work. Even
I'm
though
sorry that you're mischaracterizing. I did not say that you could go up and feel. That was not what I was. I was saying that it reads, meaning it looks like wood, looks authentic as wood or not. I'm not suggesting that anyone can walk up on your property and touch your siding.
It's also the way the material weathers and the way it ages. Hardy board does not match the way cedar ages and weathers.
For cedar to age and weather, I mean, we're talking about, and I know this isn't just about our lifetimes, but something beyond our lifetimes almost. And we're willing to upgrade beyond hardy. But the overall application, what we're proposing, I think really meets the intent of what the board is trying to accomplish. And in comparison to the original approved elevation, it delivers as far as what was promised for the detailing and composure. Even with some improvements, we would argue, as we've discussed over several meetings, it'll be exceptional quality. Boral materials of exceptional quality and field painted, even at a distance, a close distance. I challenge anyone to notice the difference between that and cedar, let alone from a street view, which is where the public will perceive this.
Well, the point we're trying to make is that we appreciate that you want to build with quality materials. The only point we're trying to make is that when the developer sold this property, there were promises made as part of that whole development, which these houses are a part of. They were promised cedar, and we were promised natural materials. And we feel that we have to uphold that promise to the community.
I understand the board's position.
That's the pitch. That's the whole thing that this is hinged on.
No, it's
and we don't like being in this position. Who would?
It's
that's
transferred.
That's what was agreed to.
That the approval has lapsed. Finding it difficult. My client's finding it difficult to swallow, given the circumstances. And I know there was a prior commitment, but again, I think that we're meeting and exceeding the design guidelines in general.
Joe, that's all nice and good. The certificate of appropriateness has not lapsed because the developer has over the period of time from when the certificate of appropriateness was issued, has in fact submitted modifications to his other buildings, which we reviewed and approved. And so, you know, that was a continual, ongoing application. There's nothing that had lapsed on that. So, you know, let's just sort of take that off the table because that's a non-starter. I think that let me ask the board members if you had gotten some more information about Boral siding. Would that be something that you would look at or contemplate as far as a substitution?
We have reviewed Boral. We've approved it as part of the original application at 20 the Boulevard.
Right.
For an addition on the Kemble House. We have visited, some of us have visited locations where it is installed outside of the village in Garrison. I feel that I know what I need to know about that product, and I think that it is a very high quality product that, as I've said before, does allow for field finish, crisp lines, and the developer made a commitment to use natural materials on this site as a buffer between the historic structures and the new construction. So it's not an or, it's an and for me.
I agree.
Okay, Lloyd?
Um, I'm still thinking, as you can tell, although we've thought a lot about this. As I said earlier, I'm probably more open than most to alternate materials, except for plastic railings and post. I have to say that's changing a little bit with the discussion of the past commitment by the developer, who I also feel very, very strongly should be held to the commitment that he made. It was a trade effectively for volume, square footage, money in the end, which is what it comes down to. So I don't know why it would be cast aside now. I would like to know more about Burrell. I don't know a lot about it. I do like the crispness of it, the way that it can be painted, so that perhaps it ages the same way. I don't know that I'm convinced that it is not as durable as, or is more durable than cedar. And I have no knowledge of the pricing of the two materials, nor do I think we should get into that. I think that's all I have to say. I feel like I'm rambling.
All right, Sean?
I'll come back with more comments if I have them better formulated.
Sean?
Yeah, I think that basically we just need to look at and I realize that I'm the person that even brought this up in the first place, so I take full responsibility for that. But really, as far as this and the two houses that will come after it are concerned, to the applicant's point, our design guidelines do specifically say what is allowed and what is not allowed in the village. For these particular houses, there was an exception made to those guidelines, that they be natural materials. And as far as going forward from this, I think if we don't uphold that agreement, and if we don't uphold those exceptions that were made to the guidelines, then we kind of don't really have any standing for anything else. I mean, we basically have to throw out everything that was agreed to by the developer. So for that reason, I would not feel comfortable approving Burrell siding in lieu of natural materials. I think the neighbors also have made a really firm case about their involvement and their expectations and their agreements with the developer. I do think that it's a material that we would probably end up seeing a lot more in the village, and that would, could potentially be a good thing. But for this particular residence and its two neighbors, I feel we have a obligation to the community to hold the developer at their word.
I think it's worth noting that given what was known when this property was sold, this property should have been spec'd to the materials that were agreed upon as a starting point. That was not done. That is not our responsibility. That was the seller's responsibility. And I will say to the Shermans that I'm very sorry that you're in this position. I would be very angry if I were in that position. I think I've said that to you before, but that should have been the starting point when this property was sold to you. And when Joe began his designs, the specs should have begun with the agreement that was already established and gone from there. And I am also sorry that you were not made aware, which again, the developer knew very clearly because we've done it with him for years, that we undertake a process on this board called workshopping, where before your architect even begins to lift a pencil, you may come to the table and talk to us about the projects, the ideas that you have and what you're considering for the site, and we can lay out for you sort of parameters, bumpers, if you will, to work within as you design. And you did not need to be in this position. We could have saved you a lot of time and money if you had been treated honestly in this exchange, in this sale. And that's simply a shame.
Well, I would just point out 2 calls ago, I asked for clarity on what is a requirement and what's not, and I didn't get a response to that. I'd also just point out, if one of these neighbors would like to build an addition and they could, or reside their house, it sounds like what I'm hearing is they could get that approved in Boral.
Their neighbor across the street who's on this call recently did put an addition on his house, and he can tell you the cost that he went to ensure that the natural materials were used because his structure is in the National District. And that property owner worked very hard with us to come to decision, and the resulting addition on his house at 56 Paulding is beautiful.
I don't know.
He workshopped with us first, and I'm sorry that opportunity was not afforded to you by the seller.
If I could finish. My point is I just find it a bit of a hypocrisy here that someone could come to the table tomorrow and do something, that we're suggesting we're doing, and you would approve it because it's within your guidelines. Just pointing that out. So look, it sounds like it's a no. It sounds like we finally got the clarity we've been asking for. Is that right? It's a no. We can't do this. So if we say right now, so that's the clarity. It's a no. So if we say now, we'll do Cedar. Can this be the final call? Because we're coming up on our 4th mortgage payment in a global recession. Like, we just want to start building the house now. So Cedar, and we can go.
Well, okay. Am I correct that what we're talking about is the alternate spec package, changing the hardy board to cedar? Is that what we're talking about, Joe?
I think at this point, obviously, we're at an impasse here, and the Shermans want to build their house. They want to move forward. If the only way to do this is cedar, I think that's what we're talking about doing, is a true cedar house, if that's what we need to do. To their point, I guess if we knew yes or no meetings ago, we wouldn't have had as many painstaking conversations about where we're going to end up. But they want to do a good job. They want to build a beautiful home. They want to be good neighbors. They want to be able to build their house. And if changing the siding to cedar is what allows them to do that, I think we're at that point where we'd be willing to offer that.
Okay.
Al, the alternate package does have Burrell trim, not cedar trim. So just
to be clear, we would remove that and provide cedar also, complete cedar package.
Okay.
The alternate package also doesn't have the railings in it?
Correct, because they would be, the railing that was presented
And the columns.
PVC, and there's a cedar kit when we were entertaining metal balusters. At this point, we'd rather change to have an all true wood railing, complete cedar. So there's not even really a spec for that. It would just be made of cedar.
Okay.
Not a prefab kit.
Good to me. Thank you.
Okay. Let-
Is the
because
design of that railing reflected in those drawings then? I guess-
Let's go through the alternate package, alternate spec package, just so that we're clear on what we're talking about. All right, let's go to the beginning. All right, so we're going from hardy board to cedar.
You would delete the hardy board and replace it with cedar clapboard, similar style.
Okay, roofing stays asphalt, fine.
Correct.
Windows stay Geldwin.
Correct.
All right, let's move on. The door is solid wood.
Correct.
The garage door is as shown. Trex for the deck.
Will be retained.
Right. Now, okay, so here we're looking at Boral exterior products. This is all the trim work and the beadboard. Now, am I correct that we're changing that to cedar? Okay.
Also, if you could just make a note as well, because we talked about this, and it's probably on the drawings, but previously, Joe said that all the window casings would match the trim material. So if we're moving to all cedar, then that would be for the house
Right.
trim as well as the window casings.
Correct. So we will update the detail in the final drawing set to note that the casings, the drip cap, the historic sill, all cedar.
Okay. All right, let's keep on moving. Trim, we talked about that, cedar. The waterproof coating is fine. And I think everything after that, with the light fixtures and the gutters and so on, that's, there's no change there. All right, so the two big changes are, we're changing the hardy board siding to cedar, and we're changing the Boral trim and beadboard to cedar. Right?
Correct.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion? Well, first of all, I guess I'm looking at the agenda. Have we done the seeker vote on this application?
I still don't think we have, so we should
Okay.
do it again.
Let's do that. Do I have a motion concerning the seeker status?
I would make a motion to classify it as type 2 because it is a single family residential construction.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? All right, so it's type 2. So we have a motion, rather we have an application. The drawings dated August 12th. The alternate specification package where the hardy board and the Boral trim and beadboard are changed to cedar. Do I have a motion concerning that application?
Al, I'm sorry, did you say railing?
Well, the railing was not in the package, but I think the railing is, isn't it the cedar railing with the metal pickets?
Well, as Lloyd points out, that is not included in the packet, so I think it's important to be clear on that point.
Thank you.
Okay, so that needs to be,
Was Joe just saying, though, that the railing would be fabricated entirely out of cedar? Or did I misinterpret what you said, Joe?
No, you're correct, Sean. Completely cedar, delete the metal, all wood.
So it would be cedar as drawn.
Correct. And we can add notes to the final plans that indicate that.
okay.
And I guess same for the pergola too, right?
Okay, do I have a motion concerning this application?
I would make a motion to accept the application as modified.
I will second.
Okay, Sean,
Aye.
okay, Kathleen?
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, so the application as modified has been approved.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all your time. I think it's going to be a beautiful house. Hopefully it's something we'll all be proud of when it's done.
Thanks.
Um,
Dan.
Wait to see it. Thank you.
Okay, just as far as just paperwork goes, Joe, the railing, you're going to make that the change on the note on the drawing, right? Am I correct? Okay, and so you're going to prepare the final set, the 812 set, which you'll send to Sean to put in the final approval package, right?
Correct. To reference all the conditions that were just stated tonight.
Okay, and I can work with the the specification package that you submitted, and I'll just make some notes on it to change the hardy board and the boral trim to cedar. So I can take care of that. So if you could just update the drawings and upload that, I can prepare a C of A for that.
Thank you.
All right.
Also, just one other paperwork thing. If Kristen, if you haven't already given those green postcards to Jeff, can you just drop them off whenever you have a chance, and he'll put them in your, we have to keep it all in your file. You can do a thumbs up, thumbs down. You don't need to.
I only got 3 back, but I have them, so I can give them to Jeff, and I'll give him the sign back with the post then as well, yeah?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. As far as the agenda goes, do we have anything else to go? Yes. All right. Right. Do we have anything else as far as board business?
Yes, we have a couple of board things to talk about. The first is I spoke with Michelle Gedney at the Current about postings for public hearings in the Current as well. We talked about this during our last meeting. I think that the quality and clarity of their public notices are really great and could work as a good supplement to our required legal notices. I don't think that we would require 2. I would advocate, because the Current comes out on Fridays, I would advocate just for putting in the notice the Friday before our public hearings, which are almost always on Wednesdays. She said that for public notices, they honor a 20% discount off of their rate sheet. I could circulate that around, but basically a black and white 8-page is $60. A 16-page, which I think would probably be too small, is $30. So 20% off of $60. I think that that's a appropriate bump up in our fees for public hearings if it's going to increase the ability of the public to know that they're occurring. The legal notices and the PCNR, obviously it's our obligation, but looking for this public hearing, read through it like twice before I even found ours, and there's only 4 notices, so it's not very user friendly. I think the other topic, as far as advertising for public hearings is concerned, Aaron Wolf of the ZBA said that they require applicants to sign some sort of a affidavit that they've posted their site signage for public hearings. I can reach out to him to get what language they use.
I can send you the one. I had to fill out one recently for my shed. I can show you. I think it's a great idea because it it looks serious, right? You need to agree that you're putting it up between X dates and you're attesting that you've done it and you're going to ensure that it's up for a period of time. I think that would eliminate some of the back and forth we had here with storms blowing the signs down, and people know that you're responsible for them.
And I don't want the, I think some of the emails that were circulating were a little bit accusatory of the site in question tonight. And I went by that site probably 5 times and the sign was up every single time. So I think clearly there was a technical issue with the post. But I think if we do that, then it does kind of cover our bases as far as advertising for public hearings are concerned.
The only thing I would suggest is talk to Jeff. For some reason, the phrase newspaper of record sticks in my mind. So I don't know if the village has a newspaper of record that.
PCNR is. It's circulation based. Under the law in New York State, it's circulation based, and the PCNR is the paper of record. So we have to continue advertising in the paper of record. I think what Sean is suggesting is a supplemental ad that is more accessible and visible. And I think it's a great idea, beyond the fact that it's an entirely different readership than the PCNR.
Okay, well, but that's not what Sean said. I mean.
No, I wasn't clear. I'm saying that in addition to running the legal notices, we would also, it's, the Phillipstown Planning Board, Town Board, they run dual public notices. They always put one in the current. Truthfully, it is, Kathleen's point about readership is important, and obviously the current is free. From my standpoint, it's purely the design. I mean, it's just, if the PCNR would give us an 8th-page ad for what we pay for a legal notice, I'd be fine with that. But the legal notices are, the only person who reads them is Carolyn. I mean, they're just like, so, they're not user-friendly at all. So it's not really going to promote audience participation. So I'll get some more information from Aaron about that sign information. We can talk about it when we next meet. We do have the 8-12 minutes that Kathleen prepared. Is anybody prepared to talk about those? I am. But if nobody else is, then I'll just email Kathleen my comments and we can vote on the next session.
I believe that's the meeting that I missed, so.
It is. Also, only Lloyd and Al can make comments if you have any.
I don't have any. I'm not prepared. I can look at them and do the same email.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's
Okay. What were the minutes that I sent you comments on, Andrea? There was something that,
Okay,
was that a July?
hold on one second. I've got this written down.
I'll go back and look. All right.
Okay.
8-12, Al, 8-12 would have come from Kathleen.
I will take a
Okay,
look.
so we'll talk about, so Andrea, just to confirm, I know you and I talked about this via text message, but we are, the only 2 minutes that we have outstanding to vote on are 7:29 and 8:12.
How about
Is that
7-8?
8,
We never voted on 7-8.
7, 8.
7-8.
We never
Hold
voted.
on, let me look at my notes.
I have draft minutes for 7-8.
I had 7, 8 that,
We were supposed to vote on them one time, but we never got around to doing that.
no, actually, Al, which meeting am I looking at? Hold on. We voted on 3/11, 6/10, 6/24, 7/8. I edited, removed the watermark, and emailed them to you. Those were approved.
Okay, so then we must have a 7:15 maybe? Or a 7, whatever, 7:22? Were there minutes from 7:22 circulated?
What was 7:22? Hold on.
Here are the minutes that I have that I've signed. I have the electronic version of it. February 12th, March 11th, June 10th, and June 24th.
Not 7/8.
No.
I didn't send that to you.
So it was voted on. So we approved it, and Al just needs to sign it. It's what it sounds like.
Well, we have a draft which if I let me look at the agenda for I thought the 29th.
They were on the agenda for the 29th, but we didn't. Sorry, they were on the agenda for the 12th, but we didn't vote on them.
Right. And I don't think we ever voted on them.
On 3/11, 6/10, 6/24, and 7/8, or we're just talking about 7/8?
Just 7/8.
Oh, just that one. Okay.
So I think that we should just send it around. Everybody take one last look and vote on them next month, or when we have our next meeting.
Okay, so those will be tabled for the September meeting.
What are the dates again that we're looking at?
7/8, 7/22, 7/29, and 8/12. And potentially we'll have 8/28 as well, or 8/26 today.
Right. Thank you.
I just wanted to, I'm skipping a thing and I'll go back to it, but I just want to remind everybody that I sent an email around about a historic tax credit webinar that they're doing tomorrow night at 6. It's the Landmark Society is doing it. I've been to like 1,000 of these and I never remember any of the information for more than 3 weeks, so which is why I'm doing it again. But if anyone wants me to resend the link, I will send that to you as well. I asked Jeff to put it on the website. I don't know whether or not he ever did.
I don't think he did. I'm hoping that I can be home in time to listen in.
I would imagine that they will have a video of it available.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
That seems to be the
modus
for these types of things. Okay, so then the last thing is the scheduling of the next design standard review. I know, Lloyd, you quite understandably weren't able to give it any attention, which we get. What are people's availabilities going into September for meeting, either meeting, I mean, I guess digitally?
I would honestly, I'm so eager to get these done so that we don't have ambiguity. We've worked so hard. I'd really like to get them done so that when we head into the next rush of season, we've got a clean set of standards. I'd be willing to meet every week. Even if we just get a little bit done every week, I think we'll keep moving forward. I don't know what other time people have.
Are you saying Wednesdays? You'd want to meet on Wednesdays?
I will make available, the only day I cannot do is Tuesdays. I will make available whatever day works for people. It doesn't have to be Sunday morning anymore.
Right.
Whatever works.
I'm open too.
Generally speaking, I'm open, but except for the 2nd and the 16th, which are the 2 Wednesdays in September that we aren't meeting. Obviously, we don't need to have quorum. You're welcome to meet without me. We can put it on the agenda for the 9th. Right now, we have no applications on the 9th.
If we can take advantage of days that are already booked, in theory scheduled, I think that's probably easier for everybody's calendar.
The other issue that we do just need to keep in mind is that if we're going to meet, we can only get this room, obviously, because this is the shared board room. So if we want to use the village Zoom, it has to be at a time when no other board is meeting. But we have it every Wednesday night regardless. So do we want to see how our agenda on the 9th looks and commit to spending at least a little bit of time for an update, and then maybe based on that, we can pull 5 or 6 more days before the end of October where we can finalize everything. I know that the last time we spoke to Kirsten, she was supposed to send me a Dropbox link to the assets, which she never sent me, but I also never followed up with her. And I have a, 4-month-old standing appointment with Janet Russ that I've yet to do. So I have some design things that I need to take care of.
All right, well, let's plan on the 9th, spending at least an hour talking about where we are, what we need to do in order to move this forward. I mean, I think if nothing else, let's plan it out for, on that day, and just make a list of the things that need to be accomplished in order for this thing to be finished.
This is just a technical or planning question, but in the event that we do have any applicants for Wednesday, the 9th, for our monthly meeting, if we wanted to talk about standards, could we dedicate an hour from like 6 to 7, or is that too disruptive for people?
Fine with me.
What about you?
I could make it work, but I can offer, I have a Zoom account that takes up to 100 people and allows more than 40 minutes. So we don't need to be tied to the village. I had to get that recently for my personal issues. So I still have that account. I can offer that too.
All right, well, let's see.
If you want another night than Wednesday.
Yeah, let's see how the agenda for the 9th shakes out. I mean, if we have, a fence and a sign, we can do it afterwards. If it's anything more intense than that, I mean, we could potentially even meet at 6:30 and hold the official meeting until 7:30. I feel like when we do it at the end of meetings, it's much easier for people to fall asleep.
Fall apart.
Yeah, or we just fall into gossip. So I'll just
tired, I think.
Yeah, I'll just keep in touch with Jeff about what else comes in. I'm shocked at how few things have been coming in this season. I mean, obviously, I realize people don't have a ton of extra money, but this is usually like a very I would expect to have many more things coming in for September, but maybe after Labor Day, everyone will get to work.
Well, everybody's also got their kids crawling all over them at home, and school will start soon. And
did you know, I'm sure, Lloyd, you and Al probably have heard, but there is like a national shortage of pressure-treated wood because so many people are building decks.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
I think I had heard something like that. Yeah.
People are building decks because they need them for escaping from the house.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I'll be ready for winter. Well, at least not everybody in
Michael,
the winter zone. But.
You need anything from us? Have we given you everything that you need?
Michael is away from the 8th to the 10th, right?
Yep.
So we'll need to take our own, if we do actually have a session in which we review applications or discuss applications, one of us will need to take minutes that night.
Okay.
And I'll be out the
record also
13th.
What, say that again?
I'll be out the week of the 13th.
Okay. So you would miss our regular monthly session on the 16th.
No, our regular monthly sessions on the
20 something.
No.
Oh, 9th and 23rd. I'm sorry. Yes, the 16th is the third Wednesday. You're right.
True. This is one of those 5 Wednesday months.
Right.
So that also opens up the 30th as a potential additional day to meet. So, okay, great.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? The second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Time is now 9:03. I am turning off the video.
And you got who motioned and seconded?